Any questions on any of the assignments thus far?
Are you going back to college eventually?
Well, I have one more semester to get my master's.
Oh, really? So you're doing this, and so are you doing it online?
Online, in person.
Where?
NSU.
Sweet. So are you going to change job careers in it, or just
More education.
Huh?
Huh?
He said, what did you do for your bachelor's part?
I got a Bachelor's of Science of Education in Secondary Education with an emphasis in mathematics, and a Bachelor's of Science in Mathematics.
I'm talking about for your wedding.
Huh?
I'm talking about for your wedding.
Bachelor?
Yeah. You go to
We, no. So we did it after the rehearsal dinner.
Yeah.
We had a drink, and then we went back to where we were staying and watched Wally.
That's kind of epic, though. Like, imagine, like, he might have said a drink, but imagine getting drunk and all you do is like, oh my gosh, we're going back to Earth. That'd be awesome. Oh, I could do this. I could.
All right, guys, so what we're doing today is we're going to be dividing polynomials by long division. Now, before we actually delve into dividing polynomial functions by long division, we're going to do one with numbers. Because dividing two numbers by long division is going to be almost very similar to what we're going to do with polynomial functions. So the number that we're dividing goes inside, and the divisor goes on the outside. Now, what's the first step in dividing using long division? Well, we need to see how many times 13 goes into what? 2. It doesn't go into it at 0, so we can look at how many times does 13 go into 29? 2 times.
Oh, yeah, you go this way.
And then we can say 2 times 13 is 26. And then we would subtract it. And 29 minus 26 is 3. And then we would bring down the 6. And then we would do it again. So how many times does 13 go into 36? 2. Because 3 times 13 would be 39. So this is still going to be 26. And we would subtract again. 36 minus 26 is 10. Bring down the 8. Now we need to see how many times 13 goes into 108. 8. And we can do 8 times 13, which is 104. So we put 104. And we would subtract, and 108 minus 104 is 4. Bring down the 2. And how many times does 13 go into? 3 times. And 3 times 13 is 39. And what would the remainder be? 3. And to put the remainder, is we would come up here and write it as a fraction as 3 over 13. R3 is the same. Same thing, just saying a remainder of 3. Any questions on this here? So this here is going to be very similar to what we do for dividing polynomial functions. When you divide a polynomial function f of x by a non-zero polynomial divisor d of x, you get a quotient, whole number, and then a remainder over the divisor, what we're dividing by. Now, before we look at that first one, let's, right there on that blank spot, we're going to do this one here first. We're going to divide these here. So this one isn't in your note sheet, but let's go on and write it in, because I want to do one that works out evenly. Now the way we set this up is going to be almost, or it's actually the very same as what we just did. We're going to put x cubed plus 3x squared plus 3x plus 1 inside, and we'll have x plus 1 on the outside. Now when we're filling both of these in, we need to make sure we do have every single term. So what's inside here is our x cubed. So the biggest power is 3. So since we're starting out with 3, we need x to the third, we'll need x squared, we'll need x, and we'll need our constant term. We need all of them. Because since it started out at 3, we need 2, we need 1, and our constant term. We need each one of these. If there's one of them missing, we'll add it back in as plus 0x to whatever the power, or whatever the variable is to that power. The same is true for outside. Here, since x is our first variable, it's to the first, we need it in a constant term. We need them all. Now, any questions on this here before we start? Now, what we're going to do is something similar to what we just did, but we're going to be eliminating terms. We want to cancel out each term in this polynomial. So we want to cancel out x to the third first, then 3x squared, or then the x squared term, the x, and going on. So the first main question is, what times x will give me x to the third? So what times x will give me x to the third? X squared. Because x squared times x is x to the third, because we're going to multiply these together. Because we'll do x squared times x plus 1. Now x squared times x is x cubed. X squared times 1 is plus x squared. And then we'll put it underneath. So this is very similar to our first step in the last problem, because we looked at how many times will 13 go into 29, and it'll go into it 2 times to simplify. Here, we're really looking at how many times does x plus 1 go into x cubed plus 3x squared, is what we're doing. And we found out that it goes into it x squared times. We're trying to make them be the same. And what do you think we'll do with these here? We're going to subtract. Now what is x cubed minus x cubed? 0. They're going to cancel out. We want that first term to cancel out. We want it to become 0. Now let's look at the next one. 3x squared minus x squared is 2x squared. Okay? Any questions on this here? What do we do next? We bring down the 3x. I do not know. All right. Let's do the next part. Y'all ready for what's next? We're essentially going to repeat exactly what we just did. So this time, instead of looking at x cubed, we're going to look at 2x squared. So what times x will give me 2x squared? Well, we know it's going to be positive since they're both positive, and it would be 2x. Huh? Because we want the first term. We want to eliminate the first term. So now we'll do 2x times x plus 1. So let's multiply these here. So we would do 2x times x, which is squared. 2x times 1 is plus 2x. So 2x squared plus 2x. And we're going to subtract. Now 2x squared minus 2x squared is 0, just like we wanted. Would just be x. And then now we'll do it again. What times x gives me x? Because we already do have x to the first, so it's just being multiplied by 1. So we'll have 1 times x plus 1, which is just. So it's up top. So we'll subtract this here. X minus x is 0. 1 minus 1 is. So the remainder for this is 0. If the remainder is 0, it divides into it evenly. And our answer is this right here. X squared plus 2x plus 1. Questions on this here? We ready for the next one? So we're going to start off by setting this problem up. So we need to put our first polynomial inside. So that would be our x to the third minus x squared minus 2x plus 8. And on the outside would be x minus 1. Now this one here does have all the terms that we need. Because if we look at what's inside, the polynomial that's inside the division symbol, we start out with x to the third, yes? So the next term should be x squared. The next one after that should have x, and then we should have our constant term. Do we have all of those? Yes. So we're good there. Outside, we start with x, and we have our constant term. So we have everything there. So we can go on and start dividing. So we can start off by saying what times x will give me x cubed? X squared. And then we will multiply. X squared times x would be x to the third. Exactly what we wanted. We wanted positive x cubed. And x squared times negative 1 would be negative . And then we would subtract. X cubed minus x cubed is 0. Negative x squared minus negative x squared, well, the negative and negative would make a positive. And what is negative x squared plus x squared? 0, so these would cancel out, and then we would do what? Bring down the negative 2x. Now, wait a minute. So how many terms do we have now that are down there? How many are we dividing with? 2. So can I do that? Well, no. What we could have done is over here, I could have plugged this in as 0 x squared. We could put that in there as 0 x squared. But we don't have to. Because what we can do instead doing that as well. We can bring the next one down. Because when we did the first one, when we divided two numbers, because did 13 go into 2? Well, no, 13 can't go into 2, so we moved from the 2 to the 9. We went to the next number. We added it in. We can do that here. So, what times x is negative 2x? That would be negative 2. So we do negative 2 times x minus 1. Well, negative 2 times x would be negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 1 is positive 2. So we'd have negative 2x plus 2. And then we would, well, what is negative 2x minus 2x? 0. 8 minus 2 is 6. And 6 here would be our remainder. Any questions on this here before we write the answer? Okay. So let's write out the answer. Well, our answer would be x squared minus 2 plus what over what? And that would be it. Now, unlike when we divided two numbers with a long division, how we could add a decimal and start adding zeros with a number, we can't do that here. Because each one of these is an individual term, we can't actually make another term for this to work. So once we get to this point here, we're done. We can't go any further. Any questions on this here? Let's look at another one. Okay, so let's go on and just get this set up. So Caleb, what would we write first inside? 2x.
To the fourth power.
Yep.
Plus 3x to the third power. Plus 5x minus 1.
Well, almost.
Plus 5x.
And because what do we have first? We have x to the, yes. We have to have every term. Since we started out with x to the 5th, or not x to the 5th, x to the 4th, we'll need x to the 3rd, we'll need x squared, we'll need x, and we will need our constant term. And it's not because this has an x squared. Even if it didn't, we need every single term. So 4th, 3rd, 2, x, and 1. It's all dependent on what we start with. Right, since 4 is the biggest one we have, we start with it, and we need everything below it.
You have x5. You got to go.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in our constant term.
What if you have x to like 9? That's a big problem.
Yes. And the same thing is true for our divisor. So our x squared plus 3x plus 2, we need them all there as well.
I don't like this. It's complicated.
Any questions on how we set this up? Now it's going to go back to what we were doing. So what times x squared gives me 2x to the 4th?
Times 2.
2x squared.
Same thing.
So we'll do 2x squared times this here. So we'll do 2x squared times x squared plus 3x plus 2. 2x squared times x squared is 2x to the 4th, which is what we wanted. 2x squared times 3x is going to be plus 6x cubed, and 2x squared times 2 is plus 4x squared.
What's that first one?
And when we subtract, 2x to the fourth minus 2x to the fourth will be 0, just like we want. 3x cubed minus 6x cubed is?
We can't have a negative with 5.
We can. Because that's perfectly fine.
Plus 4x.
Almost. Because 0x squared minus 4x squared would be negative 4x squared. And then we would?
Bring down the 3.
Plus 3x. Any questions? Yes. Thank you. I wrote down part of the problem. Plus 5x minus 1. There we go.
You know Spanish?
No. So, what times x squared will give us negative 3x cubed? What's going to be? Negative 3x. Negative 3x. Then we're going to do negative 3x times x squared plus 3x plus 2. Well, negative 3x times x squared is going to be negative 3x cubed. Negative 3x times 3x is negative 9x squared. And negative 3x times 2 will be negative 6x. And again, we are going to subtract. And negative 3x cubed minus negative 3x cubed is 0. That's going to be 0. Now we'll look at the next one. Negative 4x squared minus negative 9x squared. As a negative and negative would make a positive. So negative 4 plus 9 would be 5x squared. 5x minus negative 6x. Well, negative and negative would make a positive. Which would be plus 11x. And then what would we do next? Bring down the negative 1. So lastly, we need to see what times x squared gives us 5x squared. Should be plus 5. We're going to do 5 times x squared plus 3x plus 2. Well, 5 times x squared is squared plus 5 times 3x is, and 5 times 2 is 10. So we have 5x squared plus 15x plus 10. And we would minus 5x squared minus 5x squared is 0. 11x minus 15x is, and negative 1 minus 10 is negative 11. So our final answer is 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 plus negative 4x minus 11
Over
x squared Now we could have also written this as x squared, 2x squared minus 3x minus 3x plus 5 minus 4x plus 11 over x squared plus 3x plus 2. And the reason I got this is that I took the negative or pulled factor the negative out of the numerator. Since they're both negative, I factor it out, which would make them both positive. And we just move the negative out front. Now, the main reason that we would do this is not because they're both negative. It's just because that first term in the numerator is negative. Most mathematicians don't like leaving this as a negative number. We like pulling it out and having it be subtracted, especially if we have a number out in front of it. But I will take it in either form. I will take either one of these here. Are there any questions on any of this here? Is there one other of these that y'all would like to look at? Go on and look through the rest of them, because we'll look at least one more if y'all want to. If not, that is fine too. Or one of those that looks more challenging than the rest. This one here. So let's see what goes inside. So we would have x to the fourth, and then what? Plus? Plus 4x squared plus and what's outside is we have x squared plus what? Yes. Since we started out with an x squared, we need an x in our constant term. We need all three. And now that we do have all the terms, we can go on to our multiplication. So here we're saying what times x squared is x to the fourth? What would be? X squared. So we'll do x squared times x squared plus 0x plus 9. Well, x squared times x squared is x to the fourth. X squared times 0x is plus 0x cubed. And lastly, x squared times 9 is plus 9x squared. And then we would subtract. X to the fourth minus x to the fourth is 0. 0x cubed minus 0x cubed is 0. 4x squared minus 9x squared is negative 5x squared. And then we would bring down the plus 0x. Oh wait, how many terms do we have? 3, so we need to bring down the negative 45 also. Okay, let's do the last part. What times x squared is negative 5x squared? Negative 5. So we'll do negative 5 times x squared plus 0x plus 9. Negative 5 times x squared would be negative 5x squared plus negative 5 times 0x is, well, just going to be plus 0x. And negative 5 times 9 is negative 45. And then we would subtract. Negative 5x squared minus 5x, negative 5x squared is 0. 0x minus 0x is, and what is negative 45 minus negative 45? So x squared minus 5 is our final answer. Any questions on any of this here? Okay. If there are no questions on any of this here, your homework is going to be on page 187. It's going to be problems 5 through 10.